Welcome to Zero Shot Espresso, the show for AI engineers who are tired of building data pipelines. In this podcast, we talk to engineers and founders about deep systems engineering and the messy reality of data in the age of AI. My name is Jay, your host for the show. I'm co-founder of Daft, and we are building data systems to power AI products. Today, I'm excited to have Josh Wills join us from Datology, where he does all things data for pre-training large language models. You know, the first speaker we have on the series, I think really like the goal of the series is to bring together folks who work in kind of the intersection of like data and AI, right? We've worked on things in the AI space on like databases. The first big wave was really fueled by like vector databases, RAG.
Yes.
And then, you know, there was also people who are really big on pre-training, such as yourself, working in Datology, on the training side of things. And then now there's all this post-training kind of like, hey, how do we align and how do we fine-tune?
Totally.
So it's such a wide breadth of topics for data within AI that I feel like recently at least has been a bit muted. And I'd like to bring it back up again.
That makes sense.
And then get folks to talk about it.
No better mechanism for doing that than a podcast.
Yes.
People love podcasts.
People love podcasts.
Never have too many of them. Exactly.
Yeah. So with that, wanted to, you know, just talk a little bit about you first.
Sure.
Quick introduction.
Sure.
Story, career, all through. I almost call it like the different phases of data.
I've been around for a long time. I have that kind of like, there's got to be some, like I'm Forrest Gump or something like that. I just kind of like stumble around from like various.
You forgot your box of chocolates.
I did. I was ashamed and like the suit and everything.
Right.
I missed out on that. No. Yeah. So I'm Josh Wills. I've been doing data stuff for like a horrifyingly long time in some way, shape or form. Like I started working in 2001 at IBM in Austin, Texas, basically building a data warehouse, basically, as one did back in the 90s and early aughts, right? Fast forward a lot. I worked at Google for a number of years, worked on the ad auction. I worked on sort of machine learning research, experimentation infrastructure. Then I kind of like caught the first kind of big data hype cycle. I worked at Cloudera from 2011 to 2015. And that was like,
and that was, I guess, like separation of storage and compute.
Yeah, it was a very,
you know, do all these
storage
things,
and compute and stuff. And it was like all these kind of things. And people were like really kind of irrationally excited about data for some reason, which was, a very kind of cool and rewarding, but also very strange experience. Right. So did that for a few years. Then I went to Slack and went back to actually like building, sort of talking about data infrastructure and selling data infrastructure. Went back to actually building data infrastructure to like the other side of the fence, exactly, to like do stuff once again. Did that for 4 years. I helped out during the COVID pandemic with a lot of like efforts to help epidemiologists scale up their data pipelines. Basically, they were running early on.
Super cool.
I worked at a climate tech company for a while, actually working on much smaller sort of data sets, actually, like related to managed charging and stuff like that. And now here I am once again in the salt mines, like writing big Spark.
Don't know how they convinced you to come back out and do this.
It's actually wasn't. So I retired, kind of semi-retired in like 2022.
Right.
And I was like, I'm kind of feeling done. Like I'm not really feeling like doing this anymore. Like I literally was like retiring at the same time that like ChatGPT launched, basically, right? And I really did think I was done. A lot of that was like, pandemic hangover and all that kind of stuff, right? All these things. So anyway, but I took some time off and I kind of like came to the conclusion that like over the course of my career, kind of the only thing I'm really good at is making gigantic data pipelines work sort of okay most of the time, basically. And I think the funny thing about like the whole, like the rise of pre-training and stuff was that it actually became like a useful skill again. And I'm like happy to talk about that a lot more and stuff. Like I felt like when I was leaving data, kind of everything was SQL all the time.
Right.
And I was like,
yeah, and I guess the small data thing was coming into play.
Small data thing, which I was a part of as well, and that I wrote DBT DuckDB and stuff like that. I did a lot of DuckDB stuff early on, and I still like do love DuckDB and stuff, and it's fantastic. But it I don't know. For me, it was like I kind of tried to describe to people that like I have written and run so many gigantic data pipelines in my life that I kind of like it's sort of like when I read like code for a pipeline, it kind of feels like something to me in a weird way. Like I can sort of feel the tuples flowing and like
whisper,
like or something like that. But it's like just if it's anything else, if you do something enough, you build this kind of intuition for it or this sort of feel for it, and like I don't know, it's like I can say things like talking to like reading some code that a researcher wrote or somebody would be like, listen, like I need you to stop hurting my cluster. Like I can physically feel the pain that you are imposing.
I can feel the electricity you're wasting.
I can feel like exactly. It's just like, and then a lot of it is just like, sometimes I fix things just by like staring at the cluster really hard,
Yeah.
and somehow that fixes it and stuff.
All right, so I guess
anyway,
data flows in your DNA, and I'm guessing
it
really
does tragically, like thanks to like a long series of like unfortunate errors, I've gotten like it's the only thing I'm really good at.
Yeah.
When
How would you describe, I guess, the flow of the change of data? I mean, I like to describe it as like kind of maybe the on-prem data warehouse era.
Yes,
right? And then
the
there was
Teradata appliances and stuff.
every company wanted to be a data-driven company.
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
And then at some point, MLOps came into play.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate.
That was a weird time.
Era. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
Don't like to think about that too much. But yeah. Anyway.
And then deep learning had like a short stint.
Deep learning, and then RL for a little bit, like right when like the Ray was born and stuff, like right at the peak of the RL hype cycle. It was very cool. And now here we are.
And then AI.
Yeah, and AI and sort of like self-supervised learning and large language models.
And do you think data has just fundamentally changed now that AI is kind of like the main thing that's driving really Silicon Valley?
Well, so I guess driving Silicon Valley is a different thing, I think, from driving data more generally. I think I think the thing I try to remind myself is that at like the end of the day, the vast majority of like the 800-pound gorilla of data is still like Snowflake and Databricks. And like running quarterly reporting for like a big Fortune 500 company. And that was true like way back in like the Teradata days too. Like that has been the consistent theme all throughout. And I think like what sort of led to the initial rise of like the big data era and Hadoop and all that kind of stuff, and was people discovering that we're now working with data sets that were so large that they couldn't do stuff that way anymore, right? And had to learn a different way of working. But then, as these things happen, the data warehouses got bigger and they got better, and like you didn't, and then you could kind of go back to not worrying about it again, more or less, and just like writing SQL.
That's super interesting. So there is data kind of in the BI and like SQL and reporting world.
Yes.
But like I'm always thinking about how has data changed now that we're in the AI space. And in my head, there's this metric, right? I call it the 101 billboard metric.
Yeah.
You're just driving down, what billboards do you see along the 101?
Well, generally, it seems like a lot of scale hostility on the billboards. A lot of scale hostility.
That is true.
I'm trying to like not to curse on your podcast, but like
we'll bleep it out.
Yeah, a lot of the energy of billboards is basically like fuck you scale. Like I like not in so many words.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean
anyway.
So I mean data in the AI world, right? I think it actually comes down to labeling. Labeling is a big one. There's all kinds of like big labeling pipelines.
Labeling pipelines.
And then the one thing that I've like been quite pleasantly surprised by is ClickHouse. I feel like they've somehow really found a really good wedge into the current zeitgeist.
Yes. I mean, they've been going on for a while, I think, broadly speaking. I mean, I think I see the same thing over and over again with a few different data vendors. I saw this with Snowflake back in 2015. Like I was like hanging out with folks from Square.
Yeah.
There's a company called Block that used to be called Square, right? And they would not shut up about how great Snowflake was. They really would. They were like talking now. And essentially what they were saying was, it's like BigQuery, but you can run it on AWS.
Right.
And I was like, oh, actually, okay, that actually does sound great. But they like literally wouldn't shut up about it. And then ClickHouse was actually the same way with like Cloudflare. Cloudflare was the first company I knew that was using ClickHouse like seriously for real stuff. And same kind of thing. You could not, if you met a random Cloudflare person on the street, they would not shut up about how great ClickHouse was. And once upon a time, dude, DuckDB too was the same kind of energy.
That's true.
The same truth of like DBT. Like the thing I feel like I see over and over again with these very successful data technologies is early in their life. Again, not the very start, like Snowflake started in like 2012 or whatever.
Right.
At some point, you reach a point where there's some serious consumer who will not shut up about how great it is.
And it's kind of like champions the movement.
They do. And they're the one who sort of like spreads it out more or less. And ClickHouse has had that, again, because it's like a legitimately fantastic product. That actually like scratches a lot of itches for me and just does its job extraordinarily well.
Well, what do you think like differentiates ClickHouse from maybe the other data tools that have kind of like, try the AI thing? Everybody's like, I am now database for AI, right? But
like what makes them the database for AI?
Yeah, what makes them the database for AI, let's say?
I mean, I actually don't, I'm trying to like, I don't actually think what I think is great about ClickHouse, what makes nerds really like it, really has almost nothing to do with AI at all, just for like what it's worth. For me, the coolest thing about ClickHouse is the variety of different table structures they have, basically. And that for me is like just really very satisfying, basically. Snowflake's, fantastic virtue is also kind of its flaw in the sense in that like it just works. And like you can change the t-shirt size, but that's it. Nothing else matters. And like Databricks serverless, it's the same way. With ClickHouse, I really get to scratch that nerd itch where I get to like think hard about what is the right table type for the problem I'm trying to solve without actually having to go all the way down to like writing my own LSM tree implementation and stuff, which again, some people like to do. No judgment if that's you, right? But if you like want to if you like reading LSM stuff and you want, how can I use these very cool, fancy data structures in my day-to-day life in a way that'll make me feel awesome and I can give conference talks about and stuff without actually having to do it? ClickHouse has got you like straight away. Like that's my sense.
That's a super interesting take. It's almost like it lets you geek out.
It lets you geek out.
I guess every other data tool has been moving towards being easier and easier to use.
Easier and easier to use for a different user, for the business analyst who like literally does not care at all. But if you're a nerd, you do care and you still want that kind of control, even if fundamentally the job you have to do is a job that's best served by like a database, basically, right?
Yeah.
There's an analogy I love a lot as I think about building infrastructure, which is the Betty Crocker like instant cake mix thing. This is like back in the 50s, right? So Betty Crocker creates this instant cake mix where literally all you have to do is like pour the cake mix into a bowl and like add water and like bake and like that's it. There's nothing to do, right? And people hate it because there's nothing to do. Like more or less.
The whole point of making a cake is because
to get in it and like you're like mixing stuff and stuff. So they at some point add like the requirement that you have to add an egg as well. You have to like add an egg and you have to mix it up and then you pour it into the pan.
Right.
And that, for whatever, and that's like still true to this day, not, but like people love that.
Right. That's like me specifying an index, right?
That's me specifying an index or me specifying the table type. It's like, this needs to be an LSM table. This needs to be whatever other, I can use a regular B tree here, like all that kind of stuff. Like that's what I think. And again, I'm going to get like, I don't sell data infrastructure software anymore. I don't want the ClickHouse people to be mad at me. That's what I think they do really well. And what I think is very appealing to people like me and other engineers who are picking.
That makes sense.
That they do a good job of like giving you the egg. Like,
makes so much sense.
I don't know.
And I guess kind of on that topic, do you think there is space for something like a database for AI? We've seen a couple of attempts at this, right? Like embeddings, like vector
databases.
I would argue that like one fundamental problem for AIs is that they need good context. You have to give it the right data.
Everything is context.
And
everything.
How do you do that? You have a good search index, right? It's basically like the reason why web search for agents is so popular as a category is because that's one fundamental thing we have to do is give agents good data.
Absolutely.
But what happens when data isn't just publicly available on the web? Then you need a good database.
That's right.
Right. But I've been trying to figure out like, is there a space for a database for AI, or do we already have the tooling today?
Man, I go back and forth on this all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the joke, at least last year was that like everything is a vector database. Like broadly for a little while it was true. Like this chair was a vector database, right?
Oh,
like
everybody.
There was no vendor of anything in the world that was not so excited to tell you how they were a vector database. And like that was a fun, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or whatever long that was, like more or less, right? Everyone's a vector database. Everyone's a vector database. I mean, they've kind of gone out of favor, I would say at the moment, right? They're like, vector databases are kind of, I actually feel like if anything, they've gone from being overrated to being a little underrated. And I
would agree.
Oh, that's awkward. I don't like to agree on podcasts. I like for us to disagree. But I actually feel like we've kind of swung a little, and this is hard for me to say because I am a all-time hater. I love hating stuff. I kind of feel like and maybe, it's perhaps an artifact of like what you and I do for a living.
Right.
And that like, I work with a lot of multimodal data, and multimodal data is by far the most interesting and challenging part of like literally all the data processing I do for curation and pre-training. And to me, I feel like multimodal data kind of does need a new database. And I know a lot of people, including you guys, are building this sort of new database. Cause I really feel like for me, what has changed about data, like bringing this back around to like you originally asked, is fundamentally multimodal data, images, time series, it's now useful. We don't have to like come up with bizarro SQL syntax, right? We literally can just do stuff to it.
Yeah. You don't have to write like a C++ like pipeline to process an image.
Precisely. You could just do stuff. And that is super cool. And again, it's not even just like, not even write C++, I don't have to learn your weird SQL dialect for like, which there's like, I mean, you go through the literature, there's like a bazillion papers people have cooked up for like, there's the weird SQL dialect for time series. Here's the weird, you know what I mean? Like for all these things. And it was like, okay, that's cool. But also like, who cares? Right. That's not like a real thing.
Yeah.
No one is like thinking, oh God, I really need to go store, all this like neuroimaging data and like self-driving cars, perfect example, right? Where I have literally like 6 or 7 different primary data sources, all of different modalities. And I actually need all of them together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that for me, that is like, that is the moment that is different about right now is really that more than anything. And that's what I'm like sort of most stoked for. Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, I guess like data has fundamentally changed in terms of what we can do with it.
What we can do with it. We have now made this stuff that kind of historically was like fine, but not actually useful. I feel like we were talking a big game in like the early big data days about like, oh, You can store anything. You can store images. You can store audio files. You can store whatever the hell you want, right?
Yeah.
But we were kind of like weaker on like what exactly is it you want to do with these things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not useful, right?
It just wasn't useful.
Use, like,
I can't like just use. I just can't just be a person and just use this. And now like you kind of can.
Yeah, like transcription wasn't good enough.
Transcription was
good enough,
exactly right. And now all those things are like it's not true anymore. And so now you can actually like do stuff and it becomes useful. And that to me is what is like that's changed. That's fundamentally.
Yeah, super cool. Let's
Which
take
is
a
awesome.
deeper dive maybe into multimodal. Like,
okay,
you know, I guess are you seeing kind of the multimodal wave? Like we've been promised the multimodal wave for like I think maybe a year or two now.
Yeah.
And like I've seen, it's almost like if you look out in the AI landscape, it's almost niche. There are labs that specialize in multimodal stuff.
Be it audio or visual or like video and stuff like that.
Right. Is it coming? Is 2026 the year? Like what's your
man?
What's your
I think in counter to what I just said, it's still too hard to work with it. I think like macro. I don't know. Like friends at Runway and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, even just like the processing frameworks for it. We do not have a good mental model. Again, back to this idea of like data processing and mental models and stuff like that of like, how do I handle processing a video clip, basically, which when I decompress it is going to like blow up by a factor of like 100 to stream like don't quite know what to do with that yet, more or less. Like I personally do not have like a good mental model yet of how to handle that kind of processing.
Yeah, super interesting.
I super enjoy it. I love it because for me, it's a new thing. Like, why don't do data anymore? Or like, it's like, it's just relational data is just so boring.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so.
It's like group by.
Yeah, group by grade. Like, I've just done this a bazillion times.
Yeah.
And sure, there's skew and sure, there's this and there's that. But like, yeah, I know how to do all those things, right?
Yeah.
Multimodal is fun and new and stuff. But I don't think it's the point like macro where like the skill set for like working with it day to day, even if you kind of know what you want to do. I know what I want to do. I have a use case for it. But like, how do I actually like, I need to build these skills required to do it. And it's still not standardized. It's still like, there's a bunch of specialized tooling for it. And, and again, the virtue of relational data is that it's highly standardized. And like, it's all like, you know, we've made like little extensions to it for like JSON and stuff like that over the years and stuff.
Yeah. I almost describe it sometimes as, in relational data processing, your data usually gets smaller over time, substantially.
That's right.
Because you're doing aggregations. At some point, it gets so small, you can put it on a chart.
Totally. Exactly.
For multimodal data, like you said, like there's expansions, inflations all the time. And you're doing like, you know, GPU, VRAM.
Yeah, it's exactly it.
Weird.
I mean, it is.
Heterogeneous.
Heterogeneous and having to marshal so many different resources. Like that would, for me, was by far the dominant theme of the Ray Summit last week, which I saw you at. And we were, I love that summit, by the way, like fantastic, great crew of people there. The necessity to like marshal and coordinate like GPU, CPU resources together in these like weird, complicated mixes and stuff is just a new kind of scaling dimension in the data space that we have not really had to worry about in the relational days. And we still don't, I don't think like, we don't have it yet. We're still trying to figure out like how to do it.
Super interesting.
Right?
Yeah. I've been almost thinking of inference as like one of the core pieces of multimodal data processing.
Absolutely.
Right? But is it just inference? Like, let's say you had SQL and you just had a prompt function. Does that solve all your problems?
I mean, clearly not. I mean, it makes like, you know, it makes the text data stuff. And text is kind of fairly easy in the large language model context, right? It's not even like that interesting anymore to talk about. I mean, that's a good question. Like, could the prompt function, man, maybe someday?
Because almost all vendors support it at this point.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like Cortex,
it's become the, I mean, I guess it's like good that it's like, this is how standards emerge is like, you got to start with something, right? And the prompt one is the one we've settled on for better or worse, I guess. I can hear the sadness and like in my voice.
I know.
I was like, oh, God damn it. This is where but you're right. This is 100% what we converged on, like the prompt kind of thing. God,
in your day-to-day with working with, you know, multimodal data, I'm guessing inference is one of the things you think about a lot. What else do you think about? And you know, working with more complex data types.
Oh man, I think about the same. I guess I spend a lot of time thinking about data formats, to be perfectly honest with you, like probably to like an irrational degree.
Yeah.
I guess like, I don't know, again, one of like the knocks I have against the Ray Summit, I guess, since I don't want to like, you know, just purely glaze Ray and stuff like a lot of the talks are talking about like how they sort of overhauled their data processing model training pipelines to support multimodal data, right? And a lot of them, again, is the virtue of Ray and the ability to kind of like combine GPUs and CPUs in richer ways than you can do in Spark and other things. But also a lot of it is just like, how do you structure the data? How do you set it up to make it easy to process?
Like
at rest. Yeah. Like literally like what format are you using? Or how do you structure it together? And to me, that's actually like, it's not sexy.
You know what? I was going to save this for the hot takes,
Was it? Yeah. Oh, are you? Okay. Yeah.
But let's hit it. Like, is Parquet enough? Or do we need something more?
Man, that's a really loaded tab. That's a super hot take. I don't know yet. It's a good question. I don't know yet. You know, man, it's tough. It's really tough to tell. For a lot of things, Parquet is in fact enough. And has been enough for like quite some time. And just it's just its ubiquity.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it's hard too, because like I use this analogy a lot with like new technologies, is how they need to be 10 times better than some other technology on at least one axis to like really like take off and stuff.
Almost like grab that niche market first.
Grab that niche market, right? Like precisely. But even like Parquet, to me, like what they sort of have done successfully is like not completely, but like significantly displace CSV files, which was literally the state of the art in like data formats and Exchange for like a really insanely long time. And I don't want to talk about web data set and tar files and stuff, but that's anyway, like there's all that stuff too. They have largely done that by being reasonably standardized schema, reasonably self-describing, reasonably consistently readable across all these different things. And that is like a huge, like massive like win. And that's why people use them, because it's like essentially the equivalent of a CSV file. It's standard. You can use it for anything. You can like adjust it as you see fit and stuff like that. Man, whether it's enough or not, it seems like a lot of people feel like it is. That's a very,
have you adopted anything
very bullshitty cop-out answer. I have been playing a lot with Lance.
Okay.
I've been playing a lot with Vortex.
Okay.
I am very impressed with, like, at least in Vortex's case, it actually like cuts the size of my files in half.
Yeah.
Which
I guess
like
that
respect.
Reduces, network.
Network reduces my fairly insane S3 bill, basically.
Egress,
like all the storage. I store an insane amount of data. Like a literal, I don't know.
You're a data researcher through and through.
I got my data rich hat over here.
Oh yeah.
Like,
where is it?
It's right here, right? It's kind of like it's data rich. Yeah, this is like fantastic. No, this is the Datology data rich hat.
Yeah.
I guess it comes down to whether you consider data an asset or a liability, like how you think about it. But yeah, anyway, I love this hat. So yeah, that is very appealing. The downside is, of course, just like, you're kind of going off into the wild, basically. And like on what axis is it 10 times better? Because it being half as big is 2x better. 2x better is great. A mechanism by which again, selfishly for my use case, I'm deeply interested in how quickly can I get these files from S3 into a GPU. That is like what I spend all my time thinking about for inference, for training, for all the things, right? And that is, I think, maybe like where we will see the 10x come from. And I know both Lance and Vortex are working on it, which is why I'm keeping a very close eye on them, because like that would be a massive unlock for me. If there's a there, like that's the 10x dimension where I think, fingers crossed, we could actually get like 10 times better.
I feel like it's almost like you have to pair the file format at rest with a really good data loader. A really good data loading story.
That's right.
Because the thing you want to be 10x at is actually getting the data into the GPU.
That's right.
Pipelining all that with all the network calls you're making
precisely
to object storage.
Exactly. Doing caching and all the kind of smarts around it and stuff like that. Yeah, precisely. The formats we have for this are like MDS. We have like lit data shards and stuff, which are both remarkably similar. It's just like there's a header and it just tells you offsets into like byte blobs, and there's schemas for like decoding them and stuff like that, right? And that's super cool. But it also be, like a lot of what we say is like, look at your data. And the great thing about Lance and Vortex and stuff is that you can look at them. You can use DuckDB. You can use like all kinds of different tools to look at your data. And like looking at your data is, I think, like, I don't know, like a lot of things in data work, it's simple but not easy for some reason, like anyway. And so that's sort of what you sacrifice with these like sort of blob offset or tar files or whatever, right? That like Lance and Vortex can promise you that are like, ooh, okay, that's anyway.
Yeah, super.
But more, 100% more than anything, it's just how fast can you get the data into the GPU for me? That's
at the end of the day, for I guess like any sort of like training or like batch inference kind of shove it in the GPU.
Shove it in there as fast as you can. Like every second wasted costs me like serious amounts of money. So like, that's the metric that matters right now.
Makes a ton of sense.
Anyway.
Vibe coding. Wanted to get your thoughts on.
Yeah, sure.
Is vibe coding different from like vibe data? Because you're, I think, a very interesting intersection of the two.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know that that's
and I have a thesis around vibe coding that, hey, like, the way you do code is you write some unit tests, you write a bunch of code, tests turn green, and then you commit and deploy. For data, it's a lot more of a exploratory workflow. Like people call it EDA. Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
It's kind of like you poke around, try a few things. Like you go like, ooh, like doesn't look quite right. Plot a graph, you're like, like not quite right. And you go back and then you do something again. it's not as deterministic almost.
No,
And
not
it
even
requires
close.
external input of like reading the data and playing with it.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, do you think tools like Cursor are sufficient for this?
Oh,
Or
man.
is there room for something else that, like
Yeah.
an AI notebook? I don't know.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I feel like it's a good question. I've like many thoughts on the vibe coding thing. I guess like I want to start sort of obnoxiously by like not objecting to the term vibe coding, but objecting to the term vibe coding in some sense. I differentiate between so first of all, I don't like really write code at all anymore. And I haven't since like March, really when like Claude Code came out in a real way. I cycle through different agents and stuff. I was a Claude stan for a long time.
Yeah.
I used Codex for a while. I'm actually kind of annoyed with Codex right now. And so I'm trying out new agents this week. I've been using Cursor Composer.
Yeah.
Been very impressive
This
today.
is the new like Uber and Lyft.
It's the new Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
It's very much this. I'm kind of in this mode. I differentiate between when I know how to do something and I just don't want to do it.
Right.
Versus like when I kind of know, I like that, and I call that augmented coding. Like I'm just essentially delegating like I would to a more junior engineer or like an intern. I can supervise and I can review and stuff. Versus vibe coding, I consider when like I know a computer can do this. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I know that it can be done. Like a lot of front end stuff or a lot of advanced Kubernetes configuration.
Right.
Like clearly this is doable. I again have never done it and I'm not in a position to judge more or less, right? And then it's kind of a question of like when you're in that situation, if it's just like, writing like the CSS for a one-off front end for a tool you're writing, like go nuts, like vibe code yourself. If you're, say, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, deploying a new node local DNS cache solution on your production Kubernetes cluster, maybe don't vibe code that, hypothetically speaking. Just don't, like vibe coding that is wrong. Maybe take the time to understand it so that you don't end up in a situation where you've destroyed all the DNS settings on your prod Kubernetes cluster for several hours and you have to very quickly figure out a lot of stuff about node local DNS that you didn't learn, blah, blah, blah. Hypothetically speaking, not speaking from personal experience, that kind of thing, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. There are a ton of people doing what I would consider is like the equivalent of Cursor for data analysis. There's like a dozen of these. I'm pretty sure I invested in like 3 or 4 of them at some point. Not intentionally, but it's just companies, they you pivot like crazy. It's very natural.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a there, right? I should like not, I'm like being a bad angel investor, like, but I worry that this is, I don't know, worry is the right term. This feels sort of like the BI tool market, sort of 2.0 to me, in that like the BI tool market is both is like kind of like the security market. It's both a good market and a bad market. It's a good market because once you get somebody, it's very sticky.
Yep.
And you kind of have them basically, and they are yours, right? It's a bad market in that it's really hard to dominate the market.
Yep.
Like we had this problem at Slack with like, there were like Tableau people and Looker people, and we wrote our own internal dashboard because of course we did. And so people use that, and people just use Excel, and people use R, and they use Python, they use notebooks, and people like their tool, and you can take their BI tool from them when you pry it from their cold dead hands. I kind of worry that like the BI agent market, but I mean, I feel like you're asking a deeper question, which is like, is this even necessary?
Yeah, is
like,
it necessary?
Can Cursor just do this? Can Claude just do this?
Because I mean, I've met people who use Claude Code to do everything from like BigQuery analyses.
Absolutely. Or like run their personal lives. Like I like Claude Code as like your chief of staff. Like Claude Code is the agent, that sort of thing, right? Man, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think I'm just going to sound like, I feel like I'm going to sound like a Luddite when I say this, but it's like, I like to think in my head that there's something ineffable and transcendently different about the process of doing data analysis compared to the process of software engineering, that like somehow, and I just feel like it'd be very hand wavy of like, I guess the software, I guess like, so I'm a data scientist, right? And like the data scientist quote and all that kind of stuff, right? What it was always been special to me about like the data scientist, at least as I learned it, was that I am a software engineer, but I was also trained to be a statistician. Software engineers are relentlessly optimistic. Like I met so many software engineers in school and later in life who've literally never heard of like Gödel's incompleteness theorem. They have no concept of like Turing, whatever. They have no concept there's any limitations at all. And that's a superpower. It's a very American superpower, right? It's like you can do anything with a computer. And that attitude is very like optimistic. Statisticians are generally a pessimistic bunch. They are generally like, when you're sort of trained in statistics, it's very much like, what is the maximum amount I can say that I know given the data I have? And generally the answer is most of the time it's not a lot. Most of the time you actually can't say very much, right? Most of the time when you see an effect, there's a decent chance like you went wrong.
I guess you think a lot about risk and like
you think a lot about risk.
Intervals.
You're very like, and I see this a lot. Like, I mean, all I can just go on. I'm going to have a whole other podcast about my relationship, my complex relationship with my coding agents. There's a lot of times where like, I will tell the agent to do something and it will go about doing it. Like I tried to have it add like an observability layer, like implement like OTel or whatever for like a multi-processing setup is running in Python. And like, look, that's a terrible idea. That's a really dumb thing to do. It's like not going to work. The open telemetry stuff deeply does not want to be used in a Python multi-processing framework. But like Codex and Claude will happily chug along and try to satisfy my need to make this work. And it'll take like a day and like, however many tokens for me to discover, wait, none of this works. This is actually a terrible idea. Like, why didn't you just tell me this was a terrible idea? I should have never done this. And that kind of like is sort of maybe the ethos I need from my data analysis agent is that I want a level of skepticism, and that's kind of that's sort of the job in some ways.
Interesting.
Don't blow a bunch of smoke up on my ass. Give me a perspective on this. I mean, again, given, I don't know how much the agents clearly want to please us and people's weird relationship with O4 and all that kind of stuff, right? I think that's hard to do.
Super interesting. You've kind of gone beyond like the workflow of building code and building data pipelines, and more about the ethos.
The kind of the ethos, like what is it we're doing here? Like what is the job, right? If the job is just to like blow smoke up my ass, the agents are fantastic at that already. But like I don't want that from a data analysis. I don't want that. I want a data analysis that's very clearly not just trying to tell me what I want to hear.
It's more like a search for truth in data often.
Yeah, a little bit.
Code is more just like build the thing that I'm telling you to build. So there's a specification, just like go according to spec.
Exactly. And I don't know. And I think my friend Kent Beck has this great, which actually is fantastic too. And I do this a lot myself. You want to create different personas for your coding agents. So like when I work on something, I will create the benchmarking coding agent that is completely different from the feature implementing coding agent. Because if I have the feature implementing coding agent do the benchmarking, I will get a benchmark that shows the feature is awesome. And I
pat itself on the back.
Well, it's a pat. It's just trying to glaze me. It's just trying to like say, oh my God, Josh, this is like the greatest idea ever. You are an unbelievable genius. Whereas I want the benchmark, and I kind of, it's sort of like a church and state or like, experiment design situation. I really want the agent to have no idea at all what my horse is here. I'm very much like, hey, I'm very neutral. I'm trying to decide between these two technologies. I don't know which one is better. I need you to guide me here. I need rigorous, robust analysis, like all this kind of stuff. And I consciously try to make sure the agent does not know that I have a stake in one of these outcomes.
Mask it. Don't let it know.
Like as much as possible. Like it's kind of memento style. Forgetting of everything is a key feature for making this work. Like, and anyway, that's it. And I don't know, do we need a different kind of agent for that? Like, is it, I don't know, like, what does that look like? How do we like engineer, I'm not sure. It probably has something to do with pre-training, but again, I'm highly biased in this regard.
Super cool.
Anyway,
I guess some might say just give it a different system prompt, but I don't know.
Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it is. I guess for me, it's like one of the things I have learned in my time doing this stuff is that like all of the, like, I don't know. There's an interesting, like, I guess one thing I want to say about the, phases of data and stuff is kind of everything is driven, not everything. No, that's not true. Most everything is driven by hardware cycles. There's a hardware cycle, and then we figure out some algorithm that lets us take advantage of the hardware. So big data era, disk became super cheap. We invented MapReduce as we rediscovered it. It was invented in the 70s. We rediscovered it as a processing paradigm to take advantage of that, right? And then, with this era, it was GPUs were the hardware and transformers were the architecture. And it allowed sort of all this stuff to be possible, right? That this kind of keeps happening over and over again. Pre-training is in kind of this interesting space where it's sort of like in between the hardware and like the post-training fine-tuning, RAG, mid-training, like all this kind of stuff, right? It's like, it's not hardware, but it is fairly early stage. Like much later on, you can tinker with all kinds of open models and the APIs. You can do all kinds of really fast iteration there. But for me, like, I feel like we keep coming back to the fact that like foundational capabilities in the models, be it reasoning, like you need long context windows, like reasoning traces help an enormous amount. A lot of alignment stuff around like making sure the models aren't going to tell you how to build a bomb and stuff like that. Like all these things fundamentally come back to pre-training, and pre-training operates at like a much sort of longer cycle timeline than just the like very quickly iterate on the prompt very quickly iterate on the RAG, like me working with the coding agent in the context of some PR or something like that, right? I don't know. That's another like fairly fun aspect of this.
Yeah.
Is sort of operating kind of in between the hardware and the like cutting edge software cycle, like sort of on the spectrum. I don't know. Maybe it's firmware. I don't know. Maybe it's operating systems. I don't know. Anyway, but it does feel like we discover things downstream that we want. We come up with like hacks to kind of make them work. And then we figure out ways to bake skills into the pre-training pipeline that makes those things easier over time.
I mean, it's true, right? Like if all of computer science is just kind of abstractions.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? Every problem.
At some point, if you find a truth on the top layer, you want to bleed that down.
You want to bleed it down,
layers,
right?
exactly.
People talk about the transformers having won the hardware lottery as being a very important idea. Like a lot of people exploring different architectures and stuff. Even like it was an article I read recently, like one of the guys who was on the original transformer paper is kind of sick of the transformer, and like still wants to explore different architectures and stuff like that, but just hasn't. There's just not a lot of impetus to do it right now. It's like the transformer is won so hard that it's tough to kind of overcome.
Right. Attention's all you need, but you go bored of attention. You know?
Yeah.
I don't want to do attention no more.
Yeah, precisely. Right. And it's always this kind of question of like, do we really need a new architecture? Like at some point it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's the Arrested Development meme with like Lindsay and Tobias. And they're like, you know, what is it like? Well, we should really try a different architecture. And it's like, do we need a different architecture?
Yeah.
No. Of course not. All those people that try it, they always end up just falling back to transformers and better data.
That was like ML too back in the day.
But it might work for us. Maybe it'll work for us. Exactly.
Maybe. I feel like we
can't help ourselves.
We're at the stage of like AI now where, you know, back in the day for deep learning, we entered almost this like plateau phase where we were like, oh, let's tinker with the number of hidden layers and like that kind of stuff. Right now we're kind of there again. Everybody's making these like small, tiny incremental fixes to the pipeline. And maybe that's where this comes from. They're like, okay, what is the next like step function to what we are?
I think it's like, I mean, I don't know. You can get to like, what's the structure of scientific revolutions kind of stuff, right? We had a major we're kind of in the transformer era, basically, where every paper is just like little incremental tweaks and stuff like that. And that's okay. It's just the way it goes. Like, it's all good. I still am like, I love that there's people out there who are saying, you know, like, F all that. Like, let's just do something completely different. Let's try something completely different. And again, I'm like deeply, you know, again, I don't know when this is going to come out, so it may be like hysterical, but like it's a lot of interesting rumors and speculation about like what Gemini 3 is going to be able to do that sound very, very interesting. So we may be like a completely different world by the time this podcast comes out. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows? Okay. Hot takes, and I'm excited for this because you have the hottest.
That wasn't hot enough. Like, that was pretty hot. Yeah.
Okay. Out of all the hot takes you've had on Twitter,
ever? Oh wow.
No, I mean, maybe let's bound it. Maybe say past year or two. Have you had any personal favorites?
Any personal favorites of like no, I mean, I feel like if anything, I've learned my lesson. I actually don't tweet that much anymore. More or less, after spending a lot of time like posting through it, I don't do that.
Well, learn your lesson. What caused the lesson? You know,
I don't know. Like every time, so I have been fortunate / cursed to have like a few different things go viral over the years, and just like I don't know. Every time this happens to like one of my friends, I'm like, I'm happy for you. Also, really like sorry this happened to you, like that kind of stuff, right? Because it just people are horrible. Like no matter like what it is you post, there's always somebody who will come up with like, well, you know, how dare you say this because my mother was killed by a adorable cat or something like that, whatever, right?
Yeah, it's the interweb. You know,
it's interweb. It's kind of thing. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I had the same problem, but it doesn't matter. I spent a decent amount of time, as I imagine you do, trying to convince like very talented young people to drop out of their graduate program and like come join a startup, right? And they always like criticize me because I actually have my master's degree and like, you know, like I dropped out of my PhD. I have that going for me. Yeah. But it's like, well, how dare you criticize me because you have the thing that I want. Yeah. And so like, why are you trying to get me to not get the thing that you know what I mean? And there's some of that with like people really want, they want the experience, but then they get it. And it's like, actually, no. This is
it's almost like everybody today in the AI space wants to be like Twitter famous.
Right.
Like
exactly. Everyone, you want to be Rune, you want to be like one of the prime intellect folks. Like you want to be like Cody from, you want to be, you want to be somebody. I get it. It's fun. It's a really fun game. I played it. It was really fun. I don't want to play anymore.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like I don't. It's just
he's out of the game. You know.
I don't know. Well, I'm gonna have to like tweet stuff to promote this this blog, this podcast and stuff. So I'll come back a little bit.
Okay.
But like, it's not my. I don't know. I like this. Like this is fun. Like it's me and you. We're having a conversation. This is great.
Yeah.
But, like,
I like the deeper conversations. I feel like
Right.
It's like sometimes performative, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like that's kind of I'm just not. No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
It would be better for business if I did. It really would be. I would be, but
you get paid to just tweet.
Yeah, if I just got paid to tweet, but I don't know. For better or worse, it's like I like optimizing data pipelines.
Oh man,
I'm pretty
you're a
happy.
nerd. You're a
I
nerd.
am. I don't know. I really just like pretty happy sitting in my room working on my data pipeline.
Yeah.
Just like that's not.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not very like sexy and stuff, and but I like it. It makes me happy. It's what I do. Yeah.
Let's go with favorite product that maybe changed the way you like do things, think about things, whether it's work or personal.
Interesting.
In the last year or so.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think I got to harken back to Claude Code by far.
Okay.
Or I mean, in its early Claude Code, in its March, in the old days of March
wow.
of 2025, the ancient, the before times, like kind of like when vector databases were on the downslope, but hadn't kind of overcorrected, I feel like, to too much hate, basically. Yeah. Claude Code was transformative for me, like absolutely like revolutionary. And just more than anything, made me, it's like I'm old and I have done middle management stuff. I've been like an engineering director and stuff like that. And I like that job sucks. Like I really like don't want to do that. Like there's no amount of money you could pay me to do it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I kind of get that like at a certain point, you've written like 800 million database migrations in your life. You don't super need to do another one. You learn something the first few times, right? And then I mean, every database migration is special, right? Because like they're always horrible. But I kind of like don't want to do that anymore. Or like, yeah. Anyway, and so just moving to a world where I could like very happily delegate and like manage my little minions without having to care about their feelings or their career trajectories or one-on-ones. No. And no task is beneath them. There's nothing I can't like ask them to do because like, oh my God, this task would be so horrible. Right. Like I have an agent that literally its whole job is just fixing flaky tests. That's literally all it does. Fixes it's the Rick and Morty like butter passing robot meme, right? Like what do? You fix flaky tests. I'm not gonna lie, it's like I don't have flaky tests anymore. I don't know how y'all roll like DAF and stuff. Like every time I run into a flaky test, it goes off to the flaky test agent. The flaky test like fixes it, and now I don't have flaky tests anymore.
Amazing.
I don't know what it is, but for me, it's like quality of life wise, it's incredible. Yeah. I'm like so much happier that because it was like
you're not sitting there rerunning GitHub actions.
Rerunning it, right? Exactly. Which is like it was always the case that like it was like a yak shaving exercise. Like you'd hit a flaky test or two, and you're like, okay, I could figure out what's going on here, or I could just like click rerun and like go do something else.
Right? Almost like brings back the joy of coding again.
It is a little bit, right?
Because there's things you like about it, but it's also like all this
just sort of like tedious stuff that like I don't. And again, like code reviews and stuff now, absolutely a joy because like I just pass the feedback along to the agent and like it's nothing's personal here. Like it's nothing like I'm not even attached to this code. I didn't even write it.
Lots of heart emojis in there. So
that's the whole. I mean, there's that kind of. But yeah, for me, that has been like an absolute revelation and an absolute joy. Yeah. And it has been instructive to me. It's instructed to me like the things the agents can't do yet, which are like also like fascinating and like where I still have to bring some of like my specialized skill, the unique knowledge I've gained to a problem in order to solve it. The hardest one by far is like, and this is kind of back to the idea of like curation and context in general, is the agents will often be kind of trapped by the context they're in. Give you an example, fairly common one for data processing pipelines. Let's say you've written some data processing pipeline and you're doing some transformation. And you maybe cheated a little bit and you are like loading all of the data from like some file into memory to kind of like expedite some processing and stuff like that. And it's not going to scale, but you do it because it works now and stuff like that, right? And now you've reached the point where, okay, like crap, I can't do that anymore, right? I can no longer do this. So I need to figure out a way to rewrite this function so that I don't load all that data into memory and it just works in kind of a streaming fashion or a bounded fashion. I have found agents have a really hard time doing that. I have a really, there's sort of, it's the like agent equivalent of like, don't think of a green elephant, where I say, here, agent, here's this function. I need something that does exactly what this function does. Like literally every function input, output, exactly the same, but you're not allowed to do this one thing.
Yeah, it like can't unsee it.
It can't unsee it. It can't like not think about it. And it will think that it can, but it can't. And it'll be like multiple iterations from me working with the agent and the agent being like, oh yeah, no, I did it. And I look, I'm like, no, you didn't. You think you did, but you didn't. You can't. Or it's like, or the joke about like, hey, ChatGPT, rewrite this, but take out the M dashes. Yeah. And like, you just can't. Like
it's built in, man.
It's like, I can't do it.
Pre-trained.
I can't do it. I can't help myself. It's like baked in at too deep of a level. Yeah, precisely. And so that has been, I don't know. And it's nice because those are the problems I love. Those are the problems that I sort of like keeping for myself in some ways. Again, I don't care about the database migrations like at all, but like I do like those problems. I like keeping those, just for me.
Yeah.
Just for me. That it's not yet the point where I can outsource those completely is like, I don't know, it feels kind of good.
Nice.
It feels kind of good.
Okay.
It's very clarifying for me. Like, I don't know, the value I provide or something, or like, I don't know, like what is, maybe the better, more realistic way to think about it, but the things I know how to do that are not yet in the training data.
Yeah,
I guess is
I
probably
like to
it,
tell
right?
people that there's 2 LLMs today, and sometimes it feels like people don't respect the one that we have up here. This one up here has to collaborate with the one cloud.
Exactly.
And there are things that
there's a lot of context.
The on-premise LLM is actually
context up here, exactly, that we have the model's never seen. I like to think that like politics tragically will be the last domain to kind of fall to the agents, because it's a place where you consciously none of the data that matters is ever recorded. There is no RL environment for Congress. There never will be. Like that will be the one eventual, like once all other human problems are solved and we have like, faster and light travel and hunger and everything will be solved. Politics will still be,
Congress will still be a mess.
Congress will still be a mess. Congress, they're not gonna, because they're never gonna record the data required to like make the LLMs good at politics. Like it's
so
just
funny.
You can't do it because then it wouldn't be. It's just not how it works. Anyway, everything else will teach them how to do, but not that. Yeah,
cool.
Keep that one for ourselves.
Okay.
If that's a hot take or not, I don't know.
Thanks for spending the day with us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Zero Shot Espresso. If you liked the episode, share it with another engineer who spends way too much time thinking about data systems in the age of AI. See you next time.